Hi, I'm J.C.Hollywood. This is This Week in the 80s for the week beginning May 21st. We start this week in the world of video games, and for 80s kids it doesn't get much bigger than the May 22nd, 1980 release of a video game by Toru Iwatani. That game was Pac-Man. Allegedly, Iwatani got the idea for the game while staring at a pizza that was missing 2 slices. The original name for the game was Pac-Man, which came from the phrase paku paku, which described the motion of a mouth opening and closing. By the time it was released in Japan, it was known as Puck-Man. They changed that name for the US release, fearing that people would substitute the P with an F. Iwatani hoped that the video game would have a broader appeal than other video games, which up to that point had been marketed towards young boys and teenagers. But even the most optimistic of predictions wouldn't have foreseen the global craze that was about to hit. In its first year alone, the game sold over 100,000 units and launched a franchise that would include spin-off games, TV shows and soft toys, and would forever change the face of gaming. In 1989, the Australian music charts, still reeling from the battle between the Fine Young Cannibals and Madonna, were about to witness an arm wrestle unlike any other. A deadly combination of wind and fire was about to ignite the charts, laying waste to all other challengers. On May 27th, Australians awoke to a new #1 song, a power ballad by the Bangles, allegedly inspired by a trip to Graceland. That song was Eternal Flame. Within a week, though, it would lose top spot to another power ballad, this one assisted by the cinematic tearjerker Beaches. That song was, of course, Bette Midler's Wind Beneath My Wings, a song which had already been recorded by 3 other artists in the 80s. But Miller's bombastic warbling struck a chord with listeners and sent it to the top of the charts for 1 week. Proving that you shouldn't add wind to fire, the Bangles reclaimed top spot the next week, only to lose it to Midler the following week, who would lose it again to the Bangles when the Eternal Flame finally consumed the wind beneath my wings. Rumour has it that singer Susanna Hoffs recorded Eternal Flame completely naked after a producer convinced her that Olivia Newton-John did the same thing. And to that producer, we are eternally grateful. In the US, May the 27th, 1988 saw Van Halen, the Scorpions and Metallica hit the road as part of the first ever US Monsters of Rock Stadium Tour. Joined by bands Dokken and Kingdom Come, the tour was dogged by problems and a food fight which seemed to follow them across the country. Journalist John Swenson described the experience saying, "Your critics will call you every name in the book, insult your girlfriends and condescend to your audience. Your fans will show their appreciation by showering you with mud, sweaty t-shirts and crushed drinking cups." Interestingly, Metallica were considered the best kept secret of the tour, with their hit album And Justice for All still being a few months from release. It wouldn't last though, and as Dokken and Kingdom Come faded into the memory, Metallica went on to become one of the most influential hard rock bands of the 80s. This week saw the Memorial Day weekend movie releases in the US, and the list is suitably impressive. 1982 audiences had to decide between Annie, Mad Max 2 The Road Warrior, and my personal favourite, Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, while 1985 drew crowds to Brewster's Millions, A View to a Kill, and Rambo First Blood Part 2. We also had The Shining in 1980, 1984 gave us The Temple of Doom, and we got The Last Crusade in 1989. But perhaps the most important releases in the US this week came 3 years apart and represented one of the longest waits in cinema. The Empire Strikes Back got its official US release on May the 21st, 1980, and finished with one of the biggest cliffhangers in cinema history, with main villain Darth Vader telling protagonist Luke Skywalker that he was his father. And while many took this revelation at face value, others questioned its authenticity, and it wouldn't be until 3 years later on May the 25th with the release of Return of the Jedi that they would get their answers. Spoiler warning, he was. Both films enjoyed a mostly positive critical reception, with one noted exception being New York Times critic Vincent Canby, who said of Empire, "It's a big, expensive, time-consuming, essentially mechanical operation," while of Jedi he said it was by far the dimmest adventure of the lot. He was, of course, completely wrong. And that's about all we got time for this week. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you back here next week with more This Week in the 80s.